Hi everyone, I'm Jennie with Infinity Real Estate, and today I'm continuing my series on active and vibrant retirement in the Gig Harbor area. I often, when clients come to visit Gig Harbor and they're coming from other states, they have picked out several other small towns in Washington, or small-ish towns, that they're also considering moving to. And whether or not they pick Gig Harbor, that depends on ultimately what they're looking for. But I thought it might be helpful for you if I talk about the 5 or 6 most common communities that people are often looking at and just give you some perspective on how they are similar or different to Gig Harbor. One thing I want to clarify, I am not experts in these other communities. I'm a hyper-local Gig Harbor expert, and so if you need local expertise in these other communities, I can help hook you up with someone. The other thing, I don't want to say anything negative, I don't want to offend anyone, and I will certainly do my best just to give you a little bit of compare and contrast. Let's go ahead and start with the furthest north, and we'll make our way south closer to Gig Harbor. Bellingham is one of the communities that are popular for people to explore and compare to Gig Harbor. Bellingham also encompasses the Blaine area as well as the Birch Bay or Semiahmoo area. So as I'm talking about Bellingham, I am somewhat incorporating those areas. Bellingham is the largest of the small cities that we're going to be talking about. It has almost 100,000 people. In terms of median prices, you can buy a house on average between $700,000 and $800,000, which is considerably, but not crazy, less than Gig Harbor. Bellingham is home to Western Washington University, which is known to be a progressive university. And because of that, the town of Bellingham has that really vibrant college town vibe. It's got a vibrant city center that you might find more coffee shops, bookstores, the kind of places that you think about when you think about a college town. That's a little bit different than Gig Harbor because, for one, with Bellingham being progressive, Gig Harbor being purple, we're a little more spread out in many ways, and our community activities, rather than being centered around one central location, tend to be more spread out. Bellingham also has the benefit of being really close to Canada, and for me especially, Vancouver is one of my favorite places in the world, so being able to easily access Canada is certainly attractive for many people. Bellingham also has really pretty good access to healthcare, and as we're going to talk about with some of these other communities, that's a really important thing, especially as people are considering retirement. Let's talk about some of the things in terms of maybe not the greatest for Bellingham. I hear frequently that the distance from Seattle and therefore to SeaTac is becoming problematic with Bellingham. Traffic between Seattle and up to Bellingham is becoming challenging almost all the time, and so just the sheer timeline in getting south isn't ideal for a lot of people. Compare that to Gig Harbor, which we always talk about location, 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 and accessibility to the cities being a big deal, is a reason often people will pick Gig Harbor. In terms of rainfall and cloudy days, Bellingham is kind of on par with Gig Harbor. There are some stats that say Bellingham gets a little bit less rain than we do, but in general, it's kind of cloudy there too. Even though it is a port town, rather than feeling like a small town maritime city, Bellingham feels a little bit more like a port, maybe a little bit more industrial. So for people seeking that quaint maritime town feeling, Gig Harbor often wins out. Around Bellingham, there is plenty of rural property similar to what we have in Greater Gig Harbor. There's the Ferndale area, there's also Blaine, and then when I talk about the Semiahmoo area, we're talking about more of a resort-style community with exceptional views. So really, there are a lot of great things about Bellingham, just like there are about Gig Harbor. And again, when people are exploring the communities, there's a reason that one wins out over the other, but both are awesome. Moving south, let's talk about Anacortes. When I think about Gig Harbor and Anacortes and the other towns that we're going to talk about today, I think Anacortes might be the most like Gig Harbor in many ways compared to the overall vibe and the things that you get in these other cities and towns. Anacortes is the gateway to the San Juan Islands, and because of that, I know I said I wasn't going to harp on the scenic beauty too much, but it is absolutely beautiful in Anacortes. And being the gateway to the San Juans, it is a jumping off point where a lot of people who are recreational boaters want to get their journey started and head out into the San Juans. It has about 18,000 people in terms of population, which is similar to the city population of Gig Harbor. Anacortes does not have the greater surround like we do in Gig Harbor, but when you think of the city itself and the vibe that you get in the city, I think it's very similar to Gig Harbor. It has a lot of great shops and restaurants as you travel down the main street. It's also a maritime haven, like I said, for recreational boaters. There's a great marina up in Anacortes that we like to stay at when we're using it as a jump-off point to the San Juans, similar to the reason people come to Gig Harbor as recreational boaters and want to use it as a jump-off point for the next step in their journeys. Like Gig Harbor, Anacortes residents will tell you that there's a very strong feel of community. You can sense that as you're walking through the downtown areas. Everybody's having a good time, similar to Gig Harbor. I like that a lot too. Now, let's talk about weather. A bonus to Anacortes is the fact that it is somewhat in that rain shadow, and so Anacortes gets a fair bit less rain on an annual basis than Gig Harbor. One of the stats I read said Anacortes gets about 29 inches, whereas Gig Harbor is over 40. So if sun is what you're looking for, Anacortes might be a good choice. What are the cons? So because it's a jumping off point to the San Juans and it's also the main place that the public ferries take off from, in the summer especially, there are an awful lot of tourists. Far more than in Gig Harbor, I would definitely say. And once again, similar to Bellingham, it can feel like Anacortes is further away from the major cities, even though distance-wise, it's closer than Bellingham, but again, because of that traffic getting back and forth to Seattle, and then if you're trying to get to SeaTac to take an international flight or get somewhere, it's gonna take a while. Another thing about Anacortes is the healthcare. It does not have major healthcare close in, so you're looking to have to get to Seattle, which can take a fair bit of time. I think it's probably important that we touch on politics because everybody seems to be interested in that. Similar to Gig Harbor, Anacortes is also considered a very purple community, so there's a little bit of something for everyone. Let's talk about Camano Island and Whidbey Island and how they compare to Gig Harbor. To be honest, I should probably be talking about each of these islands separately because they are very diverse and very different from each other. But when I have clients who come and say they're exploring these various communities, they tend to lump them together. So I will do that as well, but again, remember they are very diverse. So let's start out with Whidbey Island. Whidbey is a very large island that is actually just west of Camano Island. You can get to the north end of Whidbey via a bridge, but the south end of Whidbey is really most accessible by the Coupeville ferry that goes over to the Port Townsend area. So with this, there's a lot of territory on this island as well as on Camano Island. There are 3 diverse communities on Whidbey Island. There's Langley, Oak Harbor, and Coupeville. Langley's a progressive town at the top. Oak Harbor is where Air Station Whidbey Island is located. It's a naval base. And so you have a military community there. And then you have Coupeville, which is mostly just feels kind of like a little village with a ferry landing down at the bottom. Whidbey has 70,000 residents in total. So that makes it the second largest city that we're talking about today. And again, a lot of diversity going back and forth. You've got a lot of military influence on Whidbey, and that means you've got some transient as well, because most people who have military assignments come for 2 to 3 years. One of the benefits of Whidbey is the median prices are substantially lower, I believe, than as I'm thinking about it, all of these other communities that we're talking about. You can buy a home on Whidbey between $500,000 and $650,000, which you really can't do in any of these other communities. Now looking at Camano, Camano is just to the east of Whidbey, and it is accessible by a bridge from Stanwood. So that makes Camano a benefit over Whidbey in some cases because it's more accessible than Whidbey is. Camano is much more rural. There's really not any kind of main central town all throughout Camano. There's no main services, there's no main stores. You have to go to Stanwood or over to Whidbey Island, depending on what you're looking for, to get pretty much anything. So Camano is known for being absolutely beautiful and has that quiet rural feel. But what I've noticed when people are talking to me about that versus Gig Harbor, they realize that they get there and they're looking for more infrastructure. So that's important. Healthcare, again, has come up many, many times. For people who are connected to the military and to the Navy, they have fantastic healthcare right there on Whidbey Island. But for other people who are not military connected, getting to Seattle is challenging. I do have to point out that one of the big things about these communities, due to the naval station, the Naval Air Station being there, is the noise from the fighter jets. It is a reality that they do practice runs frequently throughout the whole area, and you are going to have noise. As a matter of fact, if you do end up buying a place on Whidbey or Camano, you actually have to sign a disclosure indicating that you understand there's going to be noise from the military bases. Because these islands are so long and vast, if we're comparing it to, for example, Bellingham or even Gig Harbor, where we have this central place that everybody gathers, or Anacortes, if you will, neither island has that one central spot. On Whidbey, because it's very spread out between the three communities I mentioned, and Camano, because overall it's just very peaceful and very rural. There's only 18,000 residents total on all of Camano Island. If we want to talk politics, both of these communities are overall liberal leaning. That being said, from my research, not by a ton, but specifically compared to Gig Harbor, which is purple, we do have that. And then once again, we go back to location. Gig Harbor's overall accessibility to the major cities and SeaTac is another reason that people end up choosing Gig Harbor over these beautiful and amazing communities. Let's talk about Sequim and its surrounding areas. Sequim comes up a whole lot because Sequim is in the Olympic Mountain rain shadow. That means of all of Western Washington, Sequim gets by far the most sun and the least rain. That being said, it is also the westernmost point by a long shot of any of these other communities. And what a lot of people don't realize when they come to Washington and they want to explore Sequim and even the Port Townsend area, which is an hour closer than Sequim, it just takes a really long time to get there. You have to leave the major cities, either cross the Sound via a ferry or come all the way down and around via Gig Harbor, and it's a solid 2.5+ hours from Gig Harbor. So, really great things, but I'm gonna tell you straight up, accessibility is the one thing that comes up the most as being a challenge. Now that being said, it is a hotbed for retirees because when you're out in Sequim, it's not easy to get anywhere else. And so people who are still in the prime of their working careers probably aren't gonna choose that area. So great for retirees. It also has a vast area of land, and so just like some of the other places we're talking about, there's a lot of diversity in what you can get. You can be close in to the city of Sequim, which in and of itself has about 8,000 people. The greater surround that I'm talking about has about 25,000. So you're really gonna get that small town feel no matter where you are in the area. The median prices are also much less expensive than some of these other areas. Similar to what I was saying about Whidbey, you can get a nice house, median price point in Sequim is $500 to $600. Now again, when I say that, I'm considering the whole surrounding area. So Median price being that exactly what it is. There's amazing places, and there are places that are less expensive. When I talk about it being a hotbed for retirees, it really is that. There are golf course communities that are by and large mostly retirees, and there are specific neighborhoods that are 55 plus. So if that's really a focus for you, then you definitely want to explore Sequim. And of course, if sun is your primary goal, Sequim is a great place. Sequim is home to the famous Lavender Festival, and so it can get rather touristy in the summer, but I don't think that's a distraction to just about anybody. What is a distraction is the distance, and that just is what it is. And when people are considering the area, healthcare comes up all the time. You know, healthcare tends to be number one or two on a lot of people's lists. Well, they're just, other than a small regional hospital in Port Angeles, there is no major healthcare anywhere in that area. Almost all of the residents actually have a helicopter policy that allows them to get quick helicopter access if they need major medical. If you're looking for that really slow-paced retirement lifestyle, not a ton of young families in the area, you really want that rural, kind of secluded feel, and of course, all the sun, Sequim is definitely a place you want to check out. Let's talk about beautiful Bainbridge Island. Bainbridge, if you watched Grey's Anatomy back in the day or some of these other popular shows that show the Washington ferries, you will see the ferries crossing back and forth between Seattle and Bainbridge. It really is spectacular, and if accessibility to downtown Seattle is what you're seeking, Bainbridge certainly has that as one of its biggest positives. Bainbridge overall has about 25,000 people. It is called an island, but you are not completely dependent on a ferry to get there. There is a bridge that is at the north end of Bainbridge Island that crosses over into the Paulsbo area of Kitsap. But most people who think of going back and forth to Bainbridge are talking about via ferry from downtown Seattle. On the car ferry, it's only about a 35-minute ride back and forth, and so it is popular for people who are still part of the workforce. It is also very popular for summer tourists, so that is something to keep in mind. When we're talking about prices, Bainbridge is by far the most expensive community of any of the other places that we've talked about, including Gig Harbor. Where in Gig Harbor, the median price is about $850,000, $860,000, with our average price pushing $1 million. Bainbridge, their median price is over $1.3 million, and their average price is over $1.6 million. So it's not going to work for everybody. That being said, it is a very vibrant, tight-knit, progressive community. And so if you are looking they have more green building, for example, on Bainbridge than we do in a lot of the other places. They're very focused on clean, green energy, being very progressive minded and focused. And so it is a really great place for those kinds of things. Bainbridge has a central town of Winslow, and it actually has another nearby place called Linwood Center. Both are filled with shops, restaurants, condos, and housing, various diverse housing opportunities. So making it, again, a very vibrant town. It's also known for a vibrant art scene and farmers markets and things like that. That being said, there are no box stores of any kind on Bainbridge Island. So if Costco is your thing, or you need to get to Home Depot or Lowe's, you're either getting on a ferry and going over to Seattle, or you're heading up north and you're going into Paulsbo. Costco's actually all the way in Silverdale. So from the middle of Bainbridge Island to get to Costco in Silverdale, you're looking at close to an hour drive. I mentioned the tourists a little while ago. The tourists come and go all times of year on Bainbridge, but in the summer it definitely gets really congested. With just one road getting off the island, if you're trying to get from your house to Costco in the middle of the summer when the ferry has just let out, it might take you more than that hour. If we're talking about both healthcare access and weather, Bainbridge is going to be similar to Gig Harbor in that regard. We have a very similar amount of rainfall. We are also both very accessible to healthcare. Bainbridge, because of being a ferry ride away from Seattle. Gig Harbor is probably a little bit closer because we have Tacoma nearby. When you're talking about that tight-knit maritime vibe, small town community, Bainbridge and Gig Harbor are very similar in that regard. Bainbridge is another place we love to go in our boat, hop off, go to lunch, walk around the town. It's really a great place, just like Gig Harbor is. As I mentioned, the 6 cities that I talked about are by no means an exhaustive list of the places that people are comparing when they're looking at retirement in Western Washington, but it just tends to be that is the list of communities that come up the most often. I hope I've been able to give you a little bit of compare and contrast between each of these different cities and towns, how they compare to Gig Harbor, but also how they compare to each other. If you want to learn more about Gig Harbor specifically, because as I said, I am not an expert in these other communities. I've just visited and enjoyed them, but I'm a hyper-local Gig Harbor expert. Feel free to give me a call anytime. You can also like or subscribe to my channel and watch some of my other videos. And before I close, I do want to give a plug to Garrett Custom Homes for allowing me to use this gorgeous model home to film the video today. Garrett is a very popular regional builder, and they specialize in retirement homes that are single level or have main floor primaries. So thanks, Garrett. Thanks everybody for tuning in today. I look forward to chatting with you soon.